It's a way of holding government accountable, and sometimes it's a way of getting information that we can't get anywhere else. I think it was Bill Moyers who said that news is what powerful people don't want you to know. Everything else is just public relations. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. Now, with that in mind, we don't always have to file FOIA requests or sunshine requests to get public records. The city of Columbia in particular is quite good at providing lots of information without us having to ask for it. And what we've become a lot better at doing over the past few years is sharing those public records with our readers, our online visitors, in electronic format. It's something that was very difficult to do before. But I think that's important not only from our perspective as journalists and from readers' perspective as consumers of news, but also from a government perspective. We're able to put the public records out there in front of our audience, unfiltered by journalists, any biases they might have, any slant they might have on a story. We just take the records and say, here they are in the form that the government produced them. And I think when we can do that, it's just pure information that our audience can consume, and I think that's an important thing. We had a hunch based on our frequent calls to the fire chief, Bill Markgraf, City of Columbia fire chief. It seemed like he was always out of town for one reason or another, attending conferences, going to check on the construction of a fire apparatus that they had purchased. Just seemed like he was doing a lot of traveling. So we put in a sunshine request for all his travel records and found that he far and away was the city employee with the highest annual travel expense, and that there was good reason for that. He had a reputation for always seeking out the most expensive hotel and the most expensive room in that hotel he could find, entertaining fellow fire chiefs, parties in his suite, renting Cadillacs at city expense. So that was a pretty blockbuster story. He never forgave us for it. And it turned out that nobody in city government really was aware that he was doing this, and it ended up the city manager, Ray Beck, at the time, slapped him down and said, look, we're not going to let you do this anymore. All your travel requests are going to go through my office, and I will have to approve them. So that was a pretty darn good story, I thought, that ended up saving the taxpayers a lot of money over time. I think it was about 2004, we were trying to get our hands on response times for the Boone County Fire Protection District. We wanted to know how long is it taking fire district personnel to get to the scene of a fire or an accident from the time that they're dispatched. And we were told by the fire district at the time that it would cost in the neighborhood of $20,000 for them to fulfill that request. Why? Well, because they said they didn't keep the records in a format that we could get, and that they would have to hire a part-time clerical worker to put that database together, and that person would have to work for months, totaling up to about $20,000 worth of expense for them to supply it. Well, we didn't believe it, so we went to the 911 dispatch center, asked Jim McNabb there for the same record. He called the fire district and asked for it on our behalf, got it in 5 minutes, and gave it to us for free. So, it's not only important to get public records, but also to know how to negotiate for them and to understand when public agencies are trying to block your access. A good place to start is to know that the records exist. And this Open Missouri website that David Herzog at IRE has put together is a great step in that direction. If you know the records exist, it's a lot easier to ask for them. The other thing is just to have the wherewithal to go through the process of putting in a request and then following through on those. It's easy to put in a request, but it's also easy to drop the ball or let it go when you start getting some resistance. So you've got to be persistent. You've got to learn to negotiate when they come up with exorbitant cost estimates. You also have to learn how to file a very precise sunshine or FOIA request, because some of these agencies have become quite adept at picking apart the language of the letters you write and finding reasons within your letter not to supply what you're asking for. So you've got to be pretty good about that too. Those would be the main things, I think.
But don't make it like, don't go to your editor and go, I got this FOI request, and if it comes in today, I'll have a great story.